Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to U.S. History Through Film, as we look now at the video worksheet for Bridge of Spies. Numbers 3 and 4 show Rudolph Abel using a hollow nickel with hidden documents inside. And hollow coins like that really were used by KGB spies at this time. Number 8 refers to the war crimes trials at Nuremberg in Germany, held after World War II. These sentenced many top German officials to death or long prison terms for war crimes and for crimes against humanity. Indeed, these trials sort of defined the idea of crimes against humanity. Furthermore, the Nuremberg trials set the precedent that you could not get off from a crime by simply saying, "I was just following orders." Some orders being so terrible that a soldier has a moral duty to disobey them. Although to be fair, it's hard to disobey an order knowing you might be shot if you disobey. Number 10, mentioning the Rosenbergs giving atomic secrets to the Soviets is true. Although for a long time people doubted they had and thought that their trial, conviction, especially their electrocution, was an example of the Red Scare getting out of hand, and there certainly were a few questionable issues in the trial. But when the Russians shared some of their top secret documents with the United States in the 1990s, it turned out Julius had definitely passed on atomic secrets from the Manhattan Project, and Ethel Rosenberg was probably involved to some extent in espionage as well, although her execution may have been excessive. Although then again, maybe not. Number 14, presenting Gary Powers' rank and service as being a first lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force. That's wrong. I'm not really sure why they did that. At least the rank. He was by this point a captain, and furthermore one who had officially been discharged from the Air Force a few years before, in 1956. And it really was no secret what he was getting into. He knew he would be working with the CIA, although the exact details, of course, of the U-2 were top secret until he joined the program. Number 26, where Donovan's home was attacked, even shot at, that's not true. A lot of people were angry at Donovan for defending Rudolph Abel with so much dedication, but no one ever actually attacked his home. One of some things that were added to the movie for dramatic effect. Likewise, number 27 and number 32, in which we learn there's an explosive device in the U-2, is exaggerated a little bit. The explosive device was big enough to destroy the camera, whose technology was top secret, and to hide whatever pictures it had taken by destroying the film. But the self-destruct was not powerful enough to destroy the entire plane. For one thing, a bomb big enough to destroy the entire plane would have made it too heavy. And they wanted the U-2 as light as possible, so it could fly as high and fast as possible. In fact, the first U-2s were not even painted in order to save a few ounces by leaving the paint off. Number 28, in which the pilots carried a silver dollar with a poison pen inside, is mostly true, but not entirely. Pilots were not ordered to kill themselves, although the implication may well have been there. They were mainly meant to have it as an option, in case they were afraid they would be tortured. Although I'm sure the CIA wouldn't have minded if Gary Powers had poisoned himself. Also, though a minor point, the pen wasn't in the edge of the coin, but inside a hollow inside. And it wasn't cyanide, but actually something even stronger, derived from shellfish somehow, which would kill in about 30 seconds. Number 31, when Gary's plane is shot down, is not quite as dramatic as actual events. In real life, it was even more exciting. The Soviets launched not 3 missiles as shown in the movie, but at least 14. They also sent their own planes to intercept Powers. And the Soviets shot down not just Powers' U-2, but shot down one of their own planes with their missiles, killing the pilot. Number 33, in which The U.S. claimed at first that a weather research plane had flown off course and that the pilot died, was the cover story the U.S. tried to present early on. Some officials thought we should just be completely honest because there wouldn't be much way to hide we were spying, but there were those who wanted to suggest we didn't spy and perhaps conceal some of our technology. And so initially, the U.S. simply announced that a weather research plane had drifted off course and been lost, and the pilot was killed. And so when Gary Powers was presented on Soviet television as alive and confessing to being a spy, that was a huge embarrassment for the United States. And as shown number 35, he was sentenced to 10 years of confinement, 3 in prison, 7 more at hard labor. Numbers 38 and 39 are basically true. The Soviets built a wall around the eastern sector of Berlin, or rather around the western sector of Berlin. Number 40 is not entirely true. Frederick Pryor was not caught while the war was being built. In fact, he wasn't even in town that day. But a few days later, he went to visit the home of a friend in East Berlin. Because even as the wall was being built, there were options to travel back and forth in some cases. But the friend he visited in East Berlin was someone the East Germans were suspicious of. They were watching the guy's house, and Frederick Pryor was arrested himself, held without charge, and interrogated every day. Frederick Pryor, by the way, is still alive, or at least was when the movie is made. I believe he still is. And he said that while the movie was good, it took a lot of liberties with the story. He particularly felt it wasn't fair to Wolfgang Vogel, the lawyer who represented him, and who really got involved in negotiations over the exchange of thousands of prisoners throughout the Cold War, that really Vogel was a much more upstanding and decent guy than the movie suggests. There were apparently a few good people, even on the communist side. Numbers 44 describing the death line, and number 61 actually showing people being shot when they crossed the death line, getting too close to the Berlin Wall, are basically true. There was such a death line. You could be shot if you crossed it, although Donovan himself never actually saw it happen to anybody, as he's shown seeing it in the movie. And there's number 44, the death line. Number 45 is made up for dramatic effect. Nobody harassed Donovan when he went to East Berlin. There certainly wasn't a bunch of young thugs who were secretly communist agents who stole his overcoat. That was, again, added for drama. Number 53, and again number 60, in which the U.S. refused to recognize East Germany, or the German Democratic Republic, as a country. And of course, the German Democratic Republic wanted to be treated as a country. It's true. West Germany always claimed to be the legitimate government of all of Germany, and especially in the 1950s and 1960s, West Germany refused to maintain diplomatic relations with any country besides the Soviets. They kind of had to, if that country recognized East Germany as its own country. Sort of like the issue of which China is China. We have the issue of which Germany is Germany, or if there are two Germanys. That policy eased up a lot in the 1970s as West Germany tried to build better relations with East Germany and the communist world in general, while still remaining very firmly non-communist. But in the 1950s and 60s, and to some extent afterwards, many countries refused to officially recognize East Germany as an independent country. And to be fair, the Soviet Union and Russia kept military forces in East Germany until 1994. And furthermore, the U.S., Britain, France, and many other non-communist countries never officially recognized East Berlin as the capital of East Germany. So East Germany wanted to be treated like a regular country, and especially in the 50s and 60s, we really wouldn't, and many people wouldn't either. 55 and 56, where Gary Powers is being interrogated and not allowed to sleep. maybe exaggerated a little bit, Gary Powers did suffer periods of intense questioning and sleep deprivation, but they did often try to treat him well, knowing he could be a good bargaining chip to exchange for Abel or some other Soviet spy, and perhaps in hopes he would cooperate if they treated him well. Again, there were times they were pretty rough with him, too. Number 64 through number 70, depicting the exchange of Abel and Powers and Pryor, is a pretty accurate depiction of how events really went, according to Donovan's book and discussions with Pryor afterwards. Number 69 in there mentions Checkpoint Charlie. That was one of a few checkpoints where a person could cross between East and West Berlin. And Checkpoint Charlie in the American sector was the most famous of the checkpoints, allowing one to cross between East and West Berlin. Now, number 71 suggests that Abel was likely to be executed by the Soviet Union. Indeed, the text at the end of the movie claims the Soviet Union never admitted Abel was a spy. But in fact, all that is completely untrue. When he returned to the Soviet Union, Rudolf Abel was celebrated very publicly as a successful spy, whose real name, it turned out, was William Fisher. And he was treated as a Soviet hero. Even got a postage stamp, I believe. To be honest, he didn't achieve a whole lot during his time in America, but he had played an important role in espionage before and during World War II, and was admired for never breaking while in American custody. He died at the age of 68 of lung cancer. I guess that cigarette and photograph did not pay off. Number 75 is true. Gary Powers died in 1977 in a helicopter crash. He eventually piloted a helicopter for a news crew or news station in a large city. I forget which one. And his helicopter crashed in 1977. Some people have wondered if the CIA didn't do that to him. The CIA always said they were satisfied with his performance in the Soviet Union, but some people have wondered. I'm pretty sure it's an accident, but I wouldn't want to swear to it. And number 76 is true. In 1962, Donovan helped negotiate the release of 9,703 people held in Cuba. And he then died just a few years later, 6.5 years later, of a heart attack at the age of 53.